Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Tamara Beckford Show. Alrighty, we are laughing today, but it is because it's all about that postpartum period. Now, when you hear all that's going on, you will understand. So, I have a lovely guest here. She is a repeat guest, a wonderful friend of mine. She's my master people. And we're going to be talking about self care and creating a village and even curating a village for yourself in that postpartum period. All righty, let me bring in my guest in my usual fashion. All righty, so this wonderful doctor of mine, Dr. Friend's sister doc, all the combined of mine. She's a graduate of Howard University School of Medicine. Alrighty, all my HU people, go ahead, do your thing.
HU.
There we go. She did her residency in OBGYN at Penn Hospital in Philadelphia. She lives and practices in Northern California. She is affectionately called Dr. Toya on social media, where she has a huge platform where she's empowering women to take charge of their reproductive health and advocate for themselves. In addition to that, she is also a coach of women, physician moms actually, in their postpartum period and beyond. She helps them to go from feeling anxiety and resentment to feeling confident and joy. I'm talking about the one and only my sister doc, Dr. Toya, aka Dr. Toya Luces-Sampson. Now my round of applause button that I usually have. Being in my postpartum period, year 5, the 5-year-old has stolen it. So now we're going to have to do the regular round of applause. Welcome, Dr. Toya. How are you?
Thank you so much. And yes, that's why we were laughing, because you never stop being postpartum, right? You never stop having these kids affect your life like this. So yes, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for stopping by. All righty. Welcome. We're really going to be talking about the postpartum period. And that's the thing. There's so much that happens during that period. You have the ups and then you have the, oh my goodness, the where am I, the fog. We're going to go into all of that. But before we get there, let's bring those of you who are like new to Dr. Toya's world. We're going to bring you into her world and you're going to find out why did Dr. Toya become a doctor in the first place. So let them know.
Yeah, so I did not become just a doctor. I became an OBGYN, right? So whenever I decided that I was going to be a doctor, it's because I wanted to be a gynecologist, not even an obstetrician, a gynecologist. I actually wanted to educate myself and my friends about our bodies, because I remember people saying these things and I didn't know myself, but I was like, that's not right. I know what you're telling me is not correct. And I feel like we should know about our bodies. So that's what sparked my desire to become a gynecologist, so that I can know about my own body and make sure that young girls also know, because that's how we are safe. That's how we can protect ourselves and just live the lives that we're supposed to, just with that knowledge. And it's only afterwards I realized that it was like a joint deal, and I got obstetrics as well, right? The first baby I ever saw being born was my nephew, and I was already on my path to being a doctor. But it just happened that I love it, I'm great at it, and it all comes together. And now I'm actually only doing obstetrics, and my focus is on postpartum. So, it's kind of funny how it all came about, but yeah.
So now you're there, right? And you're saying, okay, I want to be not just a doctor, but an OBGYN. Like he said, this is it. This is the deal right there. Actually, not even OBGYN, a GYN.
Just a GYN.
A GYN. So for those who are hearing all these acronyms, so the OB is the obstetrics portion, the GYN is the gynecological portion. So the obstetrics is the delivering of the baby. The gynecological care is the everything else.
Everything else.
Everything else. All righty. So Dr. Toya at the time, before pre-Dr. Toya portion, it was like, wait a minute, you're getting all this info. Well, this is how the female body works. And you're like, that doesn't make any sense. She's like, no, that can't be right. No. So I want to learn about it. So you're going ahead. So now you're in med school. While in med school, a lot of my guests, and I've interviewed
Mhm.
a lot of people,
I know.
a lot of my physician colleagues. So many changed their minds. I've
Mhm.
I think OBGYN is one of the top specialties that I hear when people say that I want to go into medicine and I wanted to be an OB. And then they're in med
Then,
school and then they leave med school with other specialties. So
right,
tell
right.
me,
That is
how
true.
so for
But
you, it didn't deter you at all?
I was unwavering. The only time that I questioned my ability to become an obstetrician and gynecologist was when I
Mhm.
saw my first C-section. I don't know how many C-sections you've seen, but my first one, I was just like, what is going on? This is barbaric. Like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I felt
Mhm.
nauseous. It
Mhm.
was a lot. And I wasn't even scrubbed. Like, I
You
was
were just like
standing in the
behind.
back
Yeah.
observing. And I was just like, my eyes were big. I was like, oh my God, but then I got over it and it's fine. But that was
Mhm.
the only time that I ever questioned. Other than that, this was always it. I was very lucky in that respect that
Mhm.
I never wavered, and this is always what I wanted to do, because I
Yeah.
feel like that is an issue for some people, right? They get into
Mhm.
specialties that they don't actually want to do, or that
Yes.
they were forced into for some other reason. And
Mhm.
this is hard enough. Like, I can't imagine being an OBGYN if I didn't really want to do it, because it is so, so hard. So
Oh
I was
yeah.
very lucky that is has always been what I wanted to do.
I love it. So even doing
Yeah.
residency, look at me poking.
Wow. Residency was
Hard. Let's just put
that
it. Residency is hard.
it was traumatic. Let's just say that it was traumatic. But yes, no, I knew there was a light at the end of that tunnel. And if I
Mhm.
just got out, I would be okay. So yeah.
Love it. Alrighty. So, we are post residency and
Mhm,
then, life is happening. We're getting married, we're starting
mhm,
families.
mhm,
Now tell us, how was that portion? After the first child, after you
mhm.
deliver, you are now in that postpartum period.
Yeah.
How was that for you?
So after my first, it was actually fine. I was still employed at that time. I was
Mhm.
a full-time OBGYN doing call and all of that. And I think I was already in survival mode because
Mhm.
I was slowly burning out during that time.
Mhm.
So I just went back and did what I had to do. Like, there was no option. So just like
Mhm.
residency, right? So it actually was fine. I don't remember anything being particularly difficult
Mhm.
outside of what's regularly difficult about postpartum. It
Mhm.
was the second baby, which
Yes.
is unusual, right? Because you think, oh well,
The
I've done this
first.
before.
So,
It
yeah.
should be fine, which is what I thought. But it was not. And it
Mhm.
was so interesting because I had burnt out and I left my job and, fought my way out, figured out how to continue practicing medicine in a way that was sustainable for me, which was doing locums, which is what I still do.
Mhm.
And I was an entrepreneur, started my own business. So in my mind, this was the ideal situation for me to have another baby because
Yeah.
I create my schedule. I am no longer burnt out. I'm doing things that I really love in a way that I love.
Mhm.
But I think because of that, because I had something to compare it to, it actually made it worse because I
Mm.
didn't give myself the time I needed to recover and heal. So I jumped back into things very quickly. I just saw a Facebook reminder
Mhm.
of a picture of myself doing an in person speaking engagement at 6 weeks postpartum. What was I doing? Why was I not
Oh my.
home? Yes. So, like, I jumped back into it very quickly,
Mhm.
ignoring all of the pain that I was feeling physically, because,
Mhm.
I had some issues postpartum. I was ignoring how I felt emotionally because I was very resentful, very upset at how I felt I was being treated. Even though
Mhm.
my family loved me and they were there to support me, I
Mhm.
was building up all of these, like, I had a score sheet against them that they didn't know about.
Oh
That, every
wow.
time, every time
Yeah.
they didn't do
Check
something that I thought they should have done in a way that
how
I
you
thought they
how
should have.
you asked them to do it.
Exactly. I was like, oh, y'all don't care about me. This is terrible. Like, can't y'all see how I'm doing and how much like, do you not see? I didn't bother to tell them. I
No.
just was like, you should know. So
Mhm.
all of these things were building up while I had gotten back into my regular life. And then eventually, like, I kind of crash and burn. I
Mhm.
had to really just stop and drop everything that I was doing. I had
Mhm.
speaking engagements. I was doing a webinar for the California, like CMQCC. Like, I was doing a lot of stuff. And I just had to be like, I can't do this right now. And I actually told my husband, I need to go away from y'all for a little while. I'm going
Mhm.
to go on a vacation. I'm going to go to Mexico, and I'm just going to take a break.
Mhm.
And it was very shocking for him because, like I said, he didn't know what was going on.
Right.
So he was like, no, no, that's not happening. And we actually went on the vacation ourselves.
Mhm.
My sister came all the way from Trinidad to help my mom with the kids, and we took the break together. And
Mhm.
it was very important that we did that for
Mhm.
us and for me. So we were
Absolutely.
able to kind of talk through what was going on. I had to do some soul searching myself and
Mhm.
realize that I needed to prioritize myself in this time, because if I am not okay, everything else is going to fall down. And
Mhm.
all of these other things are not really important if I'm not taking care of myself, not taking
Absolutely.
time to heal. And
Mhm.
I can't expect people to know what I'm going through if I don't tell them, even
Mhm.
if I think they should know. Worrying
Absolutely.
about what other people should do is doesn't make any sense, right? So use this voice that I have. I love to talk. I love to state my opinions. So I
Mhm.
needed to use it to be
Mhm.
able to tell them what I needed in this time.
Mhm.
And it was a turning point for us in our marriage. It was a turning point for me in my postpartum journey. And I really just, when I came back, really started doing everything I needed to do for myself, which included therapy, both physical and psychological, just
Mhm.
taking it easy, just focusing on the things that were truly important, and then getting back into everything else pretty, gradually.
Absolutely. Interestingly, so during that postpartum period, a lot of
Mhm.
women, when we're in postpartum, like we do not recognize, and I feel like we feel as if 6 weeks is enough because I don't even know where that 6 week
Yeah.
standard come from, other than the fact that okay, after 6 weeks surgery, you should be quote
Yeah.
unquote healed. But
Yeah, insurance, that's where it comes from.
there we go.
But that's
So,
not let's not get started on that.
but at the same time, if we really
Yeah.
think about all the
Mhm.
physiological changes, the
Mhm.
hormonal changes that's going on in our body, the emotional changes,
Mhm.
it's hard to just go from that to just boom. Now, what is
Yeah.
it that you feel like that holds us back from even expressing to those who
Mhm.
we love and know loves
Yeah.
us what we need and want, because sometimes they're two different
Yeah.
things during that period.
There's so many things. And I think the biggest one is conditioning. Like, we are conditioned to think that we are supposed to be able to handle it. Everybody else can do it. Everybody else did it. You may actually be told, well, I did this. I had 6 children with no help. And so you have
Mhm,
all of these voices in your head telling you you should be able to do this, including your own. So then you don't want to speak up and ask for any help or say that I'm struggling. Then,
mhm,
especially for physician moms, you're like a badass. Oh, sorry, I don't know if I can say that. You are, in your job, you are professional, you know what you're doing, you saving lives. And then you come to this portion in your life and you don't know what to do. So it's like almost this shame. Like, I
mhm,
should know how to do this, so that I'm not going to tell anybody that I need help because I feel like I shouldn't need help.
mhm,
And then, depending on your situation, you may have proof that even if you say something, it may not be well received, right?
mhm,
So people have different home dynamics and things like that, and
mhm,
just bad support in general. And in this time when you are so stressed, you are so tired, you feel like, just like I did, it is obvious to me that I'm struggling. Why don't you see it? So there's
mhm.
that part, and that's where the resentment comes in, is that
Yes.
I expect you to not only read my mind, but just to observe, just to see what's going on. And I feel
Mhm.
like it's a hard pill to swallow, especially when you're in it,
Yes.
that you can't expect other people to know if you don't
Mhm.
tell them,
Mhm.
because it's like, how could you not see? But it's
Yeah.
really something that we actually need to discuss beforehand, especially when it's your first baby.
Mhm.
Talk about what this can look like. Talk about the difficulties that people have. And that's why my platform and talking about this is so important, because you may not even know that you
Mhm.
would feel this way, right?
Mhm.
If your partner has never been around kids, never been around anybody who has had a baby, they may
Mhm.
not know. And it's something that they physically cannot do. So they will never have the experience, right?
Right.
So it's like a complete unknown to many men, right? And of
Mhm.
course, I'm talking about this heteronormative way, but even somebody who's never been pregnant, it is hard for you to imagine what this person is going through. So it may seem obvious to you, but like I said, worrying about what other people should notice, it will steal a lot of your energy. It's better to just use your voice and say it.
Absolutely, absolutely. When you really think about that dynamic between I am struggling
Hmm.
with A, B, and C, can't you see that I'm struggling with A, B, and C? I have not voiced that.
Yeah.
As the dynamic continues and it stretches, that void in between is where resentment builds,
Hmm.
as you've described. And
Yep.
the longer you're quiet, and
Hmm.
the more, especially if you are trying to physically show, because
Yeah.
you're not verbalizing, but you're sighing, you know,
Right. Or
and
you're snapping,
you're
you know?
snapping,
Yeah.
but you're not verbalizing, I need
Hmm.
help with A, B, and C. This
Yeah.
is very hard. Then you can see, like you said, in between, that's where the void is, where the
Hmm.
resentment builds. And
Yeah.
an additional thing that happens during that time too is when you are getting help. And I think that one of our sister doc posted about this recently, Dr. Barbara Joy, when
Hmm.
she posted about, she had preemie and she
Hmm.
asked for help, and but she's like, please just do it this way. So talk
Oh.
about that. The help that you're getting. I see it on your face.
Ah, yes. So,
That also harbors resentment, right?
yes, yes.
Okay, let's talk
So
about
I am all about help. I am all
Mhm.
about getting help. It is one of my many soapboxes. And it is one of those things where free help is always the best.
Mhm.
Asterisk. So your
Asterisk.
asterisk. So your family unit being close to you and being able to help you, then nothing beats that, right? Nobody's going to take care of you and love you like your family. But
Mhm.
that also doesn't take into consideration people who have difficult family dynamics, right? So sometimes it is not ideal to have
Mhm.
family around during this time.
Mhm.
And even if you have loving family like I did, especially as physician moms, we like things done a certain way, right?
Type A, is
So
that what we're talking about?
I mean, maybe, right? So it may be difficult. And when you have somebody who has done it before, like a mom or in law, they
Mhm.
have their own ideas about how things should be done. And they're a different generation, right? We are trying to do things differently now, as we say, break generational curses, right?
Mhm.
We have new gadgets and all of these things that we use that are sometimes better, sometimes maybe overkill, but a lot of
Mhm.
times it's like things like safety and stuff like that. And when you have a dynamic of a grandmother that is there, raise how many ever children, and they survived, everybody's alive, and you are telling them all this extra stuff, it can create a little bit of friction there.
Mhm.
And that's where the setting of boundaries comes in.
Mhm.
And something else again, better to do beforehand, right? Better to have discussions about things, because for the most part, you're going to know the personalities and how you mesh. And you can kind of guess if this is going to cause some issues with overstepping and not respecting your wishes and stuff like that. So really having all of those conversations while you're still pregnant is ideal. But in lieu of that, just being as respectful and with the least amount of emotion, if you can manage it in your fatigue state, of being like, I appreciate your help, but this is really how I want this done. And it is for safety, because most of those things end up being around safety things, right? Like, oh, the baby doesn't need to sleep on their back. Just put them on their belly. Things that we do now that are so different. And if you really can't manage that, if the relationship is just so difficult, that's when the boundary then becomes, well, this help is no longer serving me. It's not good for our family. And, I think you don't have to go home, but, and that's where the paid help comes in, which I am very passionate about, because sometimes paid help is just better than family and friends, because you give instructions and in general they have to be followed, and it can be a kind of a relief sometimes to not have to deal with that extra dynamic, because you have so many other demands on your energy. To give energy to something else like that, it's just why.
Alrighty. So here's my question now around paid help, because you talked about that paid help. And, in addition to talking about like the self-care in the postpartum period, you really talk about a lot about curating that village.
Yeah.
Now, what are some of the top people, things that's needed in the village in that period? Let's go.
Yes. So when we talk about the period, it's a long time, right? So you have the immediate postpartum and what everybody knows as the fourth trimester. So the first 12 weeks after you have the baby. And I feel like there are different things that you need at that time. Generally, it tends to be family, right? So there's rotating grandmothers, aunts, and all of that, which can be really nice to have around. But even then, you can have extra things like night nannies, like postpartum doulas, that give you just this extra level of support. And when people hear those things, it conjures up images of a very rich, mom living the life. Her husband's off working and she's there and has all this stuff. But when you think about it, as physician moms, you are tired. You are in charge of other people's lives. You have to manage your employer. You have to manage your home. And now you're postpartum. You deserve that too. And it's not something that is so out of reach that it has to be a billionaire that can afford it. So I like for people to reframe what it means to have this type of help and know that you deserve it too. And it is very attainable and very necessary, right?
Right.
Especially if, like a lot of physician moms, you're far away from your family, because we travel for jobs, we travel for our partners' jobs, for fellowship, for residency. So there are a lot more of us that tend to not have the traditional type of village, which includes family, right? And then when you
Immediately around. Yeah.
exactly, and then when you think about past the fourth trimester, which is still postpartum, because postpartum is 1 year, just so everybody knows, you have that dynamic of then now you have to go back to work. And that's when it tends to be more of a paid situation, where you have a nanny or an au pair, which is somebody kind of like a foreign exchange student that comes and lives in your home in exchange for childcare, which I think works very, very well for physician families. So, having people just around to hand you assistance and to just to be an extra pair of hands, because this idea that we are supposed to be doing all of this alone is just such a new capitalistic, like it's this is not how it's supposed to be. We are
Right.
supposed to have that village, and in 2024, when we live the lives that we do, sometimes it involves paying people to curate that village, and also being intentional about finding other people around you that can support you the way that you need.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now one of the challenge that people have,
Mhm.
especially you talked even earlier about the voices in our heads. And this is
Mhm.
not, even from a standpoint of like the mental health portion of
Mhm.
the extreme voices in the head for like, someone who has a mental health issues, but just the voices that we have. Well,
Mhm.
mom was able to do it. Grandma was
Mhm.
able to do it. I see my sister, and oh my gosh,
Mhm.
why am I not able to do it? Let's
Yeah.
talk around that. And then also well, I was able to do it from the standpoint of the family members. Your
Mhm.
sister was able to do it. So why do you need to pay
Yeah.
somebody?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. So I was a victim of, I feel like all of those things. So, and I think one for the first part is not just comparing yourself to others, but
Mhm.
comparing yourself to yourself,
Yeah.
which happens to a lot of moms who've had kids before. And
Mhm.
when you, especially when you've had your first and it's now your first baby, for a lot of people, you feel great and your body's everything's tight, everything's like just better. And there's the joy of an excitement of the first baby. And then the second baby comes around and you're older. Your
Mhm.
ligaments and everything are all stretched out. Things tend to
Mhm.
be more painful. You now
Mhm.
have a toddler running around. So
Mhm.
the experience, the fact that we think that it's going to be easier is actually quite crazy because it everything is telling you this is probably going to be tough. And that's how
But
it
you're like,
was for
"No, I've
me.
been there before."
Exactly. Like I've done this. Right. So there's the comparison to yourself
Mhm.
and then the other people. And it can be really well meaning because let me tell you, I love my mom, but I was a couple days postpartum and she was like, "Why are you walking like that?" I was like, "Oh, well, I just had a baby." And my my daughter was huge. And she's like, "Oh, well, on the next day after I had you, I was up helping the midwife deliver on other people's babies." And I was just, thank you. That was not helpful
Not
at
what I
all.
did.
So it doesn't always have to come from a negative place because my mother loves me and I love her. But
Mhm.
it, it is difficult when you are not in a situation currently.
To
And
receive that type
to,
of
yeah, but even
Mhm.
like for my mom, right? I'm sure if somebody told her that and in the moment, she would not have liked it.
Mhm.
But if she's not the one currently going through this, so it is really difficult for people to really relate
Mhm.
unless they are very in tune with what you are going through, right? Their attention
Mhm.
is all on you because a lot of people like their attention is on themselves. And it's
Mhm.
not even like a bad, selfish way, it's just human nature, it's how
Natural.
people are.
Mhm. Mhm.
So when people tell you these things, they have also rationalized whatever they went through
Mhm.
and how they have been able to deal with it can be, well, this made me stronger. This made me a better mom because I struggled. And so,
Mhm.
because I struggled and I'm a better mom, you should struggle too. But
Right.
I want to disabuse everyone of that notion that
Mhm.
struggle is something to be proud of. No, we do not need to struggle during this time. It can be better. Like you
Right.
can have help and whatever people are putting on you from their own experiences, their own traumas, just, you need to let that go. And
Mhm.
if they are unable to stop giving you unhelpful advice and comments, then again, the boundary setting, right? This is not somebody that I need in my space,
Mhm.
because I need to make sure I'm preserving my own mental well-being, and getting that kind of input is just really, it's not good for me right now.
And it's important to be able to recognize when you're there, right? When
Yeah.
you're at the level to and we're going to talk from both perspective. for
Mhm.
the postpartum mom to recognize when you're at the level that, okay, now it's time for me to set some boundaries. And
Yeah.
then for those who are helping, so lovingly, because you are so lovingly helping your family or close
Yeah.
friends or someone who is postpartum to be able to recognize and to be attuned, which is
Yes.
really like, to get attuned to what they might be feeling. And a lot of times, as you mentioned, the focus we have as human beings, we focus on ourselves
Mhm.
and we focus on ourselves helping you. So I'm here to help you, and
Yeah.
I'm doing this to help you. So when
Yes.
you really think about it, when we talk about that spotlight and like one of
Yeah.
like, the spotlight is really on me
Mhm.
instead of on you.
That
And
is so perfectly put. Yes, like the spotlight needs to be on the person that you are helping.
that you're
Like the
helping.
attention needs to be on that person. And if it is truly on the person that just had the baby, there's no way words like that will leave your mouth. There's
Mhm,
no way you would bring up what you went through and be like, oh, well, why? Like
mhm,
this is not your show. That
yeah.
you are there to help, really help. Right.
Mhm.
So yeah, you put that perfectly.
So there's something that I saw that you posted about like something with the postpartum period when women are describing how they're feeling and about their bodies, and
Mhm.
well-meaning people who are saying, "Well, you should be so grateful that you were able." So let's talk about you're able to carry this wonderful
Yes.
human beings, and you're like, allow me to vent about that.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. During the period,
Yeah.
there's so many emotions that goes through ourselves, and we start to reflect on and at the loss. Let's just be
Yeah.
clear. It is a grieving process. We're happy, but we have
Mhm.
lost our former self in this process, right?
Yes.
So go ahead.
Yeah.
And
So I think I like that you call it a grieving process,
mhm,
because that's what it is, and it's okay. It's okay to grieve your former self once it
mhm,
doesn't become like a spiral and an obsession. And I feel like we need to allow people to express themselves and
mhm,
to sit in the emotions instead of toxic positivity, because that's what it ends up being. I
mhm,
see this a lot when it comes to women's bodies after having a baby. And I know it comes from a good place because we
mhm,
don't want to shame. We want people to not ascribe to, industry standards of what is beauty and look at people who are millionaires and look at their bodies postpartum and be like, well, they can do it. Well, yeah, they have a whole team who's helping them look that way, right? That's not the reason that you know we say these things. So like when I expressed my dissatisfaction with my
mhm,
postpartum body, it was coming from a place of I really loved my body before. Like I worked
mhm,
hard to get it looking the way that it did, and it was upsetting that it no longer looked that way. And I was
mhm.
far enough postpartum that I felt like I should have been looking a little bit more
The,
like
the
my
the
old self.
infamous bounce back. Let's just use the
Right.
word.
It wasn't even about a bounce back. And so that's the
Mhm,
thing. I think if
mhm,
when people assume you expect like a 3 month snapback, that it is a harmful message, right? So it's like a little
mhm,
bit of a balance. We don't want to set unrealistic expectations so that people upset themselves and get obsessed and get into harmful behavior, but we also want to allow people to feel their feelings and not
mhm,
just disregard them because they did this wonderful thing, right? So I can be dissatisfied about how my body looks at the same time and then be so grateful and happy that the reason that it looks this way is because I grew and birthed this life. And those
mhm,
two things can be true at the same time. It doesn't mean I don't love myself. It doesn't mean I'm in a spiral. It doesn't mean I'm going to do anything unhealthy. It just means that I'm having a feeling that is valid and I want to express it. That's
mhm,
that's really all it is.
mhm. So, what would you say to the person who is on the receiving end of that when they have a friend or their loved one, who has expressed what you just expressed? Like, oh, wow, I miss, like they might say something like, I miss my body.
Mm-hmm.
That because I think that probably is a phrase that is probably often said, like, oh my, looking in the mirror, like, oh my gosh, I miss my former body. But recognizing what you just mentioned, that the person can miss, the loss of their former self, but they're still happy with where they are right
Yeah.
now. But how is the person on the receiving end? What are some ways that that person can be either a comfort or
Mm-hmm.
not to the person who is stating this loss, that
Yeah.
postpartum woman is stating this loss?
Yeah, and I feel like the conversation in general is so dynamic that it really depends on your relationship and all of those things.
Mhm.
If you can't think of anything but that toxic positivity to say, it could be that you don't say anything. Because a lot
Right.
of times when people make these comments, they're actually not asking for feedback. They're just
Mhm.
making a comment. So we don't always have to respond. We don't have to come with a solution. You don't have to make them feel better. And if you're not sure, it may seem like an awkward thing in conversation, but you can ask, like,
Mhm.
what do you want from me here? And not in a like snappy kind of
Right.
way, but in a genuine way. Like, do you want me to encourage you? Do you want me to commiserate? Do you want silence? And this is something my husband and I do all the time,
Mhm.
because I would say stuff to him and he's like, I don't know, do you want me to give you a solution or not? Because sometimes when they give solutions and all I want to do is vent, it's just like,
Mhm.
I wasn't asking for all that, so it's a tool that I think people can use that may seem awkward, but it can also avoid kind of more awkwardness, really,
Yes.
when you give this opinion that they really didn't ask for and that
Mhm.
actually make them feel worse.
Mhm.
So it really, like I said, it depends on the dynamic of how the conversation is going, but some silence is fine. And then if you're not sure, really just ask. But
Mhm.
before you respond, just think, am I responding in a way that is for me or for them? And like, what is the goal of this response? Because they may not be willing to hear that, oh well, just accept your body how it is. It's fine. Like,
Right.
that may
That
actually
might
be
not be
upsetting.
the, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So with this postpartum portion, self-care, as you know, is something that is very important, and that you were able to, you already knew it was important, but the importance of the importance
Yeah.
really revealed itself during that time. What are some things that you did for self-care?
Mhm.
And what are some things that you'd recommend those who are in postpartum period, and even for those who are burned out? Because
Mhm.
postpartum is let's just, it's kind of a type of burnout in a sense, like,
That's exactly what happened to me. So yes.
so what are some of the things that you'd recommend for that type of burnout during that time?
Yeah. So listening to your body is, I feel like, the
Mm-hmm.
most important thing, because if you know that you're having this pain, don't push through it. Like, physician moms especially push through a lot of stuff just because we are so used to serving everyone else and
Mm-hmm.
worried that, well, if I don't push through, then this is not going to get done, the patient's not going to get seen, everybody will be okay. If don't worry about them, because if you are not there, right? And it may seem like this catastrophizing thing, you may not be there if you don't take care of yourself, but it's a reality. you know Death by suicide is a very real reality in the postpartum period, especially for physicians. So you really need to take care of yourself, because you really may not be there if you don't, right? So if you're in pain, get a pelvic floor physical therapist. That was a big change for me in my journey, because I was having so much like tailbone pain and all this other stuff. And it is one of those things that is the norm in other countries, and it's becoming more popular. But because there's no like standard and it's not covered by insurance a lot of times, it is not widely available. But
Mm-hmm.
it can be so helpful for so many different things, not just postpartum, but it can really be helpful with a lot of the pain and other issues you may be having postpartum. And
Mm-hmm.
then just allowing yourself the time to get in touch with your feelings, right? Because one thing we touched on it a little bit about the mental health piece,
Mm-hmm.
but it is easy to kind of push aside how you're feeling mentally and emotionally because
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like this expectation that this is a terrible period, so I'm just going to feel bad. But for a lot of people, what you're pushing aside is actually postpartum depression. What you're actually
Mm-hmm.
pushing aside is postpartum anxiety and
Mm-hmm.
OCD and all of these other things. So, in order for you to even realize how you're feeling, you need a moment of quiet, right? You need, and this involves getting the village on board, right? Because you need that time where you are untouched. Nobody's
Mm-hmm.
asking anything from you, like just a little bit of alone time to see
Mm-hmm.
how am I doing really? Do I need
Mm-hmm.
help? And with that, then you can have the strength to say, I need to talk to somebody, reach out
Absolutely.
to your doctor, reach out to your family. So having that alone time is really, really important just to get in touch with yourself and then
Mm-hmm.
just to be, just to
Yes.
it's such a high touch time. Like you are
Mm-hmm.
needed by so many people, like physically needed for a lot of people, if you are deciding to breastfeed. And
Mm-hmm.
just having a break, I just feel like is the most important thing.
Yes, yes. And it's such a portion of your life where you're really just giving.
Mhm.
And it's a consistent giving. And part of it's joyous, but the other part, it's laborious.
Yeah, that is a
And it's
yeah.
intense. Yeah, it's a period of intense giving.
Mhm.
If you're able to breastfeed, it's physically it's an intense. So every 2 hour,
Mhm.
every 2 hours for the first few weeks, and
Yeah,
then if you're not able to breastfeed, it's probably a loss of not being able to breastfeed,
right.
where you're feeling that emotion of my body should be able to produce, and
Mhm.
I can't nurture this natural phenomenon that
Right.
should be happening. There's so many dynamics that's going on. And then, as you mentioned, having some alone time to process your feelings,
Yeah.
to process what it is that you truly want, how you
Mhm.
want it. You're getting help. How would you like to help to be done? Do I need to set some boundaries?
Mhm.
How can I get a little bit of alone time? Because rest is so important, and rest is very
Mhm.
scarce during that
Yeah.
time. So these are all aspects of our lives that we have to sit and until you sit and get a little bit of time to process, you will just be going on the spiral. Now that I
Yeah.
liken to the same thing with burnout, where
Mhm.
you're on this constant need.
Mhm.
You're doing. And in order to find out, well, what is it that I want? How can I get through this period? You need a period of rest or a pause, right?
Yeah.
Where you're pausing and you're reflecting and seeing how is it that whatever's going on around me, how is it affecting me as a person? And what are some steps that I can do to offset some of these things?
Yeah.
So,
And I think for like physician moms,
mhm.
especially, they're kind of intertwined.
Oh, yeah.
You could see more of that burnout at work when their diapers in the home, right?
Yeah.
So postpartum, little kids, because I see a lot of, well, I will never call out for myself, but I would call out for my
My
for my kids,
Yes.
right? So it's like there's this general idea that I have to give so much of myself for everyone, and I cannot, like I will not take care of myself because XYZ.
Mhm.
And it it breaks my heart sometimes to see it
Mhm.
because I feel like it's such a cliche, but I say it all the time. There's a reason, like when you're on the plane, they tell you, put your mask on first before you help anyone else. Like
Mm-hmm.
you have to be okay. The patients will be fine. Your children will be fine eventually, but they will not be fine if you're actually not there. And if you don't
Yes,
take care of yourself, there's a chance that you may not be. So it is a
absolutely.
matter, even if you don't want to do it for yourself, then do it for your kids. Take care
Mm-hmm.
of yourself in this time for your children, if that's what you need. But you are worth it, regardless of whoever else is depending on you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Alrighty. So now that we've dealt with, some of the postpartum care, the time that's needed for yourself, the village that's so important for you to curate, the family that it's so important for you to have around you, the boundaries that you need to set for those who are around you. Let's do this other portion where I am digging in and I want to know my fun questions of the day. There we go.
Yes.
So, with this question, this is our imaginative questions. We're going in a creative
Okay.
part. All right. So, if you weren't a doctor, because you've been wanting to be, since you
Mm-hmm,
were the
mm-hmm.
OBGYN,
Okay.
well, GYN that found out that she had to do the OB part since you were a kid. But if you weren't a doctor,
Mm-hmm,
doing the coaching, helping
mm-hmm,
postpartum women,
mm-hmm,
sitting here and having women being aware of their bodies and advocating for themselves. If you weren't doing, yeah, by default, there we go. I pull that. Yeah, man. Which is, curating a space for products that are made by
mm-hmm.
African American. What would you be? You because I took
I
everything
would
about you.
I would be a photographer. I
Oh,
would probably be a travel photographer because I love to
okay.
travel. But yeah, I have loved taking pictures since I was a child. And my
Mhm.
mom would always get so mad because, I'm old, I guess. So we still had those
Sure.
like disposable cameras. You had to
Yes,
like
ma'am.
wind
The
it up.
Kodak.
Right. So, those things were expensive back in the day. So
Mhm.
I would go somewhere with one of them and come back, and none of the pictures would be of me because I was so busy like taking pictures of other people. So yeah, but I got what 2 terabytes on my phone because of all the
Mhm.
pictures that I take. And I even like bought a big DSLR camera. Of course, I have no time to actually figure out how to use
I
it,
know
but
you were supposed to be using it to take pictures of the kids, right? But it's easier to snap them in the moment with the phone.
yeah, I bought that before these phones became so great. So
Mhm.
yes, I would be a photographer.
I love it. Love it. Your
Yeah,
travel photography would be
yeah,
it. Alrighty.
mm,
We have a few travel photographers and we have a
yeah.
travel journalists. And
Mm-hmm.
by the way, this is the utopia that I'm making. It's in my mind of all the physicians and all the different things. This wonderful space. So you're a
Yeah,
travel photographer. We have a travel journalist. We have a cafe owners, interior designers, backup
nice.
dancers. Like yes, we're all there. Alrighty. So now I know this has been like a very, very, very informative
Mhm,
session about the postpartum care, about self-care during that postpartum time, about
mhm.
curating. Now I know a lot of people who've been in and out of this wonderful conversation throughout the day. I
Mhm.
do have to give a shout out to one of our sister doc and your OB sister.
Ah, yeah,
Dr.
hi, Trina.
Sharita Gaskin Tillett, who, by the way, is putting together a wonderful event
Yes.
for women. Yes, a weekend for me that she has a
Yes.
wonderful event that she's putting. So if you are in that space that you're burned out, you're stressed out, and you want to be able to recharge, she has a wonderful event going on in Jamaica. Hello.
Yes.
Yes. So go to her and look up Dr. Sharita Gaskin. Look up Sharita Gaskin
Yes.
Tillett on Facebook. Look her up on LinkedIn, and you'd be able to see this wonderful event that she's putting together in Jamaica. All right.
In Jamaica.
That's the American version of saying Jamaica. in Jamaica. Alrighty. So now I know that you have this wonderful, wonderful if well, you have some classes that you've been putting
Mhm.
together for women in the postpartum period of information and things that they do need. So go ahead and let people know how can they can get into Dr. Toya's world and what
Yes.
courses or classes and coaching sessions that you have available for those in the postpartum.
Yes, so I have lots available, but
Hmm.
you can find everything on my website. So
Hmm.
that is drtoyacoaching.com. So it's DRTOYA coaching.com.
Hmm.
And if it doesn't work, my website is under construction. So keep trying.
Keep
Go to
trying. Refresh.
drtoyaobgyn.com/coach
Mhm.
because I'm switching websites, but
Yes.
everything is there. My social media is Dr. Toya Coaching on all
Mhm.
platforms, and I'm Latoya Luces-Sampson on Facebook. And I do info sessions almost every month at this point because though I do private coaching to really just make this season in physician moms' lives just seamless and easy so that they can really get to all of the good things that they want to do, which is
Mhm.
mainly just spending quality time with their kids. Like
Mhm.
my coaching helps those people, just be able to do that. I want to reach everyone, right? I want to really just revolutionize this space and this time so that we can all have a more joyful time in postpartum and in the early motherhood years. And it doesn't have to be this struggle. So that's why I do my social media. That's why I have these info sessions, because I understand not everybody is going to be a client of
Mhm.
mine.
Mhm.
So the next one is about finding an au pair. I mentioned before, au pairs are excellent choices for physician moms just because of how they work and the fact that you just have help in your home. So
Mhm.
that is going to be on April 18th at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. I never put Central, which I know is where you are, but y'all could figure it out.
Mm.
Y'all could figure it
Not
out.
not that I'm side eyeing you, but that's okay. We just subtract one
Yes.
for all the Eastern Standard Time when we hit Essential period.
Y'all are doctors, y'all are smart. You could
We
figure that
figured
out.
it
But yes,
out.
it is going to give you everything you need about finding the right au pair and just finding the right fit for your family, and
Mhm.
just take all of the guesswork because it's so much new information, so many. How do I do this? How do I interview? What do I give them? I handle all of that, right?
Mhm.
So if you go on my website, there's the link to register April 18th at 5 p.m. Pacific. So that will be three, no,
That's okay.
7
That's okay.
Central.
What? Just tell me what is? Yeah, it's 7 o'clock. It's 7 o'clock Central.
Yeah, I'm trying to be inclusive. I'm trying to be inclusive.
Thank you. We
Yes.
appreciate
And yes.
it.
And I have lots of resources on my website as well.
Mhm.
Checklists for hiring nannies, contract, like my goal is just to make your life easy. That is
Mhm.
that is all I want to do, because why reinvent the wheel? I already went through it.
Absolutely. Mhm.
Tomorrow already went through it. You
Yes.
do not have to go through it the same way,
Absolutely.
right? You can
Absolutely.
have a better experience in these early motherhood years and learn from us, but learn from people that are supportive, that want to
Mhm.
see you have a better time, unlike other people who are just like, well, I had to struggle, so you had to struggle too. We don't do
Absolutely.
struggle Olympics here. Like
No, we're not doing the struggle Olympics.
we are
There's
not.
no reward.
Nobody gets the gold in the struggle Olympics, right? I want
Absolutely.
you to have an easy time. That is my mission for my coaching, for my private coaching, and for everything else that I do, just
Mhm.
to fast track through all of the negative stuff and just
Mhm.
get to the good parts.
Love it, love it, love it. Well, there you go. We have this wonderful website. Is Dr. Latoya, is it Dr. Toya? Is it Dr.
Dr.
Toya
Toya
MD?
coaching.
We have
No, it's Dr.
drtoyacoaching.com.
Yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
drtoyacoaching.com. Resources are available.
Mm-hmm.
The information to register for the next masterclass or webinar.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's available information from the previous one is
Mm-hmm.
available there. All information, like we said, the Struggle Olympics, we're shutting it down. We there is no goal that it will be received. It's
Yeah.
to provide information so that you can have that smooth transition and be able to
Mm-hmm.
want to do, which is to spend time with your loved ones. Thank you so much, Dr. Toya, for stopping by the Dr. Tamara Beckford Show and for providing this great information, this great session on that postpartum period, the information about how self-care and curating a village is important. Now, there we go. I know some people are jumping on, they jumped on and jumped off. They're like, dang, Dr. Tamara, that was so good. But I didn't catch all of it because I had to jump off to go to work. I said, have no fear. All of this wonderful information is going to be available on our Your Caring Docs website. So just go to urcaringdocs.com. Select podcast. You'll see Dr. Toya's beautiful face and just download that episode. Send it to 10 of your friends because
yes.
Somebody who knows somebody who is struggling in that postpartum period. Somebody who's just finishing residency and they're ready to start their family, or they're currently, starting the family, and it's just like, whoa, I don't even know what to do. Send it to them. Wonderful resources available. Now, if you are looking for a dynamic speaker on stress management and burnout prevention, I am your person. Right, for your next event. So just send me an email at drbeckford@yourcaringdocs.com and we will schedule a time for us to talk and see how I can make your next workshop on stress management and burnout prevention your best workshop. All right. I'm Dr. Tamara Beckford, and I again want to thank my guest, Dr. Latoya Luces-Sampson, aka Dr. Toya, on her social media platforms. And do you have any last words for those before we go off into the sunset?
Yes, I want to thank you for having me again. This was great. I love being a guest. I love speaking with you, and I was very excited to be here. And I just want my physician moms and all moms to know, and not just moms, everybody, right? Because we, like you said, you know somebody who has the ability to bear a child. I guarantee it. So even if this is not your jam, you know somebody. We need to take care of ourselves in this time. We need to support others who are in this season because we're raising up the next generation, right?
Absolutely.
We are important. You are worthy of receiving the help. You are expected by the new generation to ask for help. Forget all that other stuff. You shouldn't do it alone. You do not need to do it alone, right? So get the help, ask for it, and if you don't get the free help, pay for it, please.
Pay for it. Yes,
Yes,
absolutely. Help is so important. Many ways to do it. You can
yes.
ask, but it's also okay if you
Mhm.
need to pay for that support during that time. Well, thank
Yes.
you again so much, Dr. Latoya. Thank you, all of you who took the time to jump on this wonderful conversation that we had in the Dr. Tamara Beckford Show. I will see you guys next time, and thank you again for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.